Book 9 is about repetition. But before we talk about it, let us briefly touch on the awk word, the hawk word. What's awkward? The qua word. People literally put themselves in awkward positions to make the wrong decisions in life and go down the wrong path and to cheat some of the people that suffer the most. I don't think it's a coincidence that the people in Yemen, for example, look like they resemble black people to a large degree, and they're dying. I've heard various statistics, and sometimes they're blown out of proportion, but certainly thousands and upon thousands of children have starved to death in this conflict that the powers of the world can prevent while they're acting like indifferent, you know, ninnies in yuppie areas. Okay. So we look at the black argument, the black martial art argument, the black religion argument, and so on and so forth. It is like saying to the people of Yemen that you want them to dress like bitches, or you're going to give them a harder time while they starve to death so that you can look good. It is despicable. To telling the most stigmatized people that you want them to do things in a way that makes you look good while you're screening them out with eugenics is despicable. And eugenics is not some conspiracy theory. Let's see, do I have this book here? I guess. Harvard lawyers and so on and so forth have written about this. A graduate of Harvard Law School, he was president of Volume 100 of Harvard Law Review, Adam Cohen. A very fact-based book about the history of eugenics in this country, the Supreme Court, American eugenics, and the sterilization of Carrie Buck. There's no way around it. This country has a long history of eugenics, of population control, with an emphasis on destroying the alpha black person, AIDS, alpha ID, get AID, AIDS backwards, die A, okay? Add I, A scrambled, right? Add I your perspective, right? And of course, Jesus, I once was lost and now I'm found. I once was blind, now I see. Jesus cured Saul, right? I believe as the story goes, the scales fell from his eyes and he could see, right? There's a lot of things here, and that's right there in the wordplay, okay? We also see Goliath and Artemis, right? These pagans historically have been telling people who are closer to God that they want them to do it their evil way. Okay, Tarzan, the Tasmanian Devil, the Planet of the Apes, King Kong, this one movie about the apes taking over the world. I forgot what it's called. Okay, they all dehumanize black people and make them look a certain way. They support the eugenic narrative. This is a calculated effort. Eugenics is scientific racism. It is like a scientific propaganda campaign, except for it's more than military funding. It is corporate funding as well. Okay, I can go on and on about why it is wrong. Let's really briefly touch on Logos. We see the Catholic Church's argument. It says universal. It's a universal church, universal morality. Logos, a divine order. They just superimpose their neo-colonialist selves on the divine order, but the idea of a divine order is sound. There's no viable counter-argument. These people avoid that argument because they know that, and the Catholics kind of rub it in their faces, and it keeps everybody down. People can effectively attack the Catholic Church to the point where they bring it down, and vice versa, because they're all half-truth, checkered floor liars. Okay, so basically, the Logos argument, the universal values. I make my own Logos argument. It is far more true. It is true. It's far more compelling, rather, and there's no way around it. Yeah. So, and they do things like feel me, so I slip on my words, and they say, "Oh, it's a Freudian slip." I swear to God, everything, it's not a Freudian slip. This is what happens when they cause you to stumble on your words and you're speaking a language that is foreign to yourself. Maybe if I was a white person or a Jew or somebody who English comes more naturally to, I wouldn't have these slips. All right, white Jew. So, Book 9, preparing one's whole life on the path of truth for an honorable death and passing over to build a light ladder with your ancestors to your descendants, versus a selfish life of spiritual dishonesty. Everyone else has a selfish life of spiritual dishonesty. To put God first means obeying God through the African martial art order. The more persecuted the order is, the more obvious it is. The more stigmatized the people are, the more obvious it is. Jesus said, "Blessed are you when they speak poorly of you, because they spoke poorly of the prophets before you." We have Matthew 5, Matthew 5:10, blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven, and so on and so forth. I mean, this is where you should look, not where you shouldn't because you're a yuppie ninny, for example. All right. Let's talk about the pyramid structure of life and death. Cheating Pharaoh is cheating everyone. Remember, Pharaoh is not this Ramses from the Bible. It is the guy who's supposed to be in charge. Pharaoh is called the King of Kings. Jesus is called King of Kings. The Jews were there learning what it means to what to do and what not to do in Egypt is part of the story, right? How to be judicious. Pharaoh appointed Joseph ruler over everything, and he's second only to him in terms of the throne. Okay. So Pharaoh is actually the idea of the leader of the world, who it's supposed to be, and you know, you have evil pharaohs superimposed on that. Yeah. There is no having a non-rapist society without Pharaoh, the true Pharaoh, having his rightful place. Right? If this guy doesn't have his rightful place, people can't see clearly. They don't make sound decisions. Part of rape is people are drugged and drunk, and they're misled, and they're tricked in various ways that the law makes a horrible call on, and therefore they're raped. Recently, it came out in the news that Trump changed the rules in terms of rape to remove the psychological component. Instead of exploring how psychology affects the reproductive cycle and sexual behavior and trying to stop it, they've actually said you shouldn't consider that as part of their law. Okay. It is easier to have an impact than to move masterfully and achieve light contact. Okay, in society, it's easier to affect society than to move masterfully and to outmaneuver someone to become the top martial artist. It's easier to be president. It's easier to be the richest man. It's easier to do everything else than it is to be the top martial artist. If Pharaoh, you know, in truth, which obviously there's no truth after I die, you're an idiot if you don't see the trajectory of mind control and propaganda campaigns and how they intensified after the War on Terror and how there's no turning back because of how it affects reproduction and breeding, and I can go on and on. If Pharaoh does not have integrity, no one has integrity, for the same reason that if Pharaoh is not complete, no one is complete. In life, it is God through Pharaoh versus the other verses that could not possibly include the Spirit of God. God reveals to man at God's speed, light speed, if you will, techniques to be victorious in battle when he's in the true Spirit of God. This ends after I die. God does not care about all the bloodlines that did not obey him, that screened out the last one that did in the world. He does not care. He is not going to help them do anything. Their blessings come from the God of this world, and they're a natural consequence of physics. You roll the dice enough, you get snake eyes. That's all that is. You know, when people have a miraculous recovery or something, enough people recover enough, some people have a miraculous recovery. That's all that is. To redeem oneself, mind, body, and soul in battle is the highest form of human redemption. The anointed let's just move on. These notes aren't perfect. Okay. The idea that the word refers to in light leads to the application in the children of God. To never mislead or spread partial truths is part of the generation of force that running on the path to heaven towards the cliff of death creates. So in life, you don't walk with God, so to speak. You move masterfully like a martial artist who's in a hurry through the jungle. There's possible ambushes. He's moving carefully and masterfully. Obstacles. He needs to get somewhere quickly, but he doesn't want to get ambushed on the way there. So there's no being no being a mall rat, no being a yuppie, no being the average scientist, no being a scientist really because they don't obey me. You know, there's no being anything else at this point, especially other than a martial artist and being loyal to God. Okay, if you want to get your black belt, so to speak, you have to do it through that system as a martial artist. If you want to connect to God, you have to be a martial artist in your own right and obey this guy. You have to apply this martial art, righteous Spirit of God through me, and obviously it ends after I die. All right. The idea that the word refers to in light leads to the application in the children of God. To never mislead or spread partial truths is part of the generation of force that running on the path to heaven towards the cliff of death creates. God's army is a martial arts army, and his messenger in the end was chosen through light contact sparring. Of course, this is how it was meant to be. You know, Tatib. You look at why didn't the Muslims, for example, with Ali and Abu, spar it out? Why did they do it in terms of mob rule, you know, and fighting? And so we can go on and on about why it was wrong to do it the way they did. Okay, so I'm not going to get into that. But to make a long story short, the more logical way in Tatib, right? Tat, ba means so, Tatib, right? So play on words. Okay, is stick fighting to get to the bottom of something through the use of a stick. Why would you actually fight with with different Muslim factions to get to the truth when you could have the two people who are arguing about who's closer to God spar it out, like David and Goliath? Okay. And incidentally, that's another reason why martial arts, religion, reproduction, social interaction, all these things are connected to the idea of God. Where if somebody lied about the implications of David and Goliath, right? What are the implications? They're martial art implications. They went one-on-one in single combat, and this has been going on long before they came around, okay? And they're comparing their gods. This guy, Goliath was cussing him out with his gods, and David was saying, I'm going to use this martial art combat, so to speak, to determine, to show the world that God is real, that this is what happens when you defy God. Okay. And it was natural combat. It was not science and technology and so on and so forth, which is it's like the Nazis arguing that they're going to show the world that the God of the Nazis is greater than the Jews by putting them in camps, right? Technology does not achieve that, only sparring and natural combat before eugenics and technology has made it nullified, which means no one can prove spiritual prowess, which means religion and the Spirit of God ends by default in the world. Work the angles on that. I'm running out of time. All right. Because of man's greed denying the bloodline of his messenger a suitable wife, God's army is forever AWOL, out of order, right? Alpha wall, right? They come between God relative to the alpha law, right? AWOL, scrambled, A low. They look at the alpha in terms of going down to hell. Okay, out of order, on earth at best. If the top martial artist can honestly go through the world and not find a suitable wife, a woman that meets his expectations that is willing to marry him, regardless of what else is going on, man has failed. God is the creator. The greatest crimes against humanity have to do with creation, okay, reproduction. If you're sabotaging this guy so you can look good, that's like telling the Yemenis to put on a pink tutu, wear devil horns while they starve to death so that you can look good, or you're going to make it harder on them. They're already suffering. They already have life hard. It's what they're doing to me. I'm already suffering, already have life hard, already live in the middle of nowhere, already ostracized. There's already job discrimination, racial discrimination. The majority of people are white. White women shun people like me unless they're fucking desperate, and ugly, right? And so on and so forth, and extremely unworthy, in terms of looks, they're all unworthy. Okay, it's stupid, okay? They've already failed. They've created a society where women only date according to the American dream, which is the mark of the beast. The American dream is a goal. A mark can be seen as a goal. It's a boundary. It's a goal. It's ram scrambled K. The ram kills the Spirit of God, the Baphomet. We can go on and on, right? George Washington's statue in the Baphomet is not a coincidence. Even if the guy made the statue didn't mean it that way. That's the direction of society. Okay, they accepted the evil of the beast, the beta's mark. The American dream is a yuppie, beta, white picket fence, or suburban, or quote unquote better dream. Okay, it is bitch shit. It is evil. It is the yuppie spirit is not the Spirit of God. I repeat, the yuppie spirit of God is not the Spirit of God. Exodus 18:3 says the Lord thy God is a warrior. Can you imagine a yuppie being a warrior? Again, Exodus 18:3 says the Lord is a warrior. The Lord is his name. Can you imagine a yuppie being a warrior? It is sick. Your dream is to come into an energy that is not a warrior energy of God. Again, Jeremiah 24. The Lord thy God is with me like a mighty warrior. Something like this. God is with me like a mighty warrior. Okay? On and on. Psalms goes on and on about warrior implications of God. The children are like arrows in the quiver of a man of God, and so on and so forth. On and on and on. Jesus said, I came to bring a sword. It's a warrior spirit. Okay, Jesus is the root and offspring of David, a warrior king who slayed people in combat as a price for the daughter of Saul, who was in love with him. Okay, it's a warrior spirit. I can't stress that enough. This is not a yuppie spirit. It's not a Joel Osteen. Joel Osteen is not in the Spirit of God. Pat Robertson and his racist fucking shallow-minded couldn't fucking outmaneuver a little kid and kill him. He's not in the warrior spirit of God. Nobody in the priesthood should be elevated unless they're in the warrior spirit of God. Okay, being a soldier is not enough. It has to be the warrior spirit of God, this natural warrior. It's not shooting a gun. It's not flying a drone. It is martial arts combat. It is David and Goliath. It is Samson. It is Moses killing the Egyptian and chasing away the people from the water hole to protect the shepherd's daughter, or whatever his job was. Okay, it is this thing. Okay, it is Joshua at Jericho. It's a warrior spirit. It's Michael casting down Satan. It's a warrior spirit, not a yuppie spirit. It is warrior dedication. It's martial art dedication to God, not yuppie hypocrisy. I mean, think about it.